What makes a leader? What pulls us beyond what we thought was our best and into sustained greatness? Tune in right here with Ron Kitchens to learn how to challenge and change your best so that you can move forward into leading at your highest level.
Hey everyone, I'm Shannon Allen here on the Always Forward Leadership Podcast with Ron Kitchens. Ron, how are you today?
I am extremely awesome.
That is great. So what is contributing to the extremely to that?
I was just singing the To Dream the Impossible Dream from Man from La Mancha.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Ron,
but that's
you got
one of those songs
you got a great baritone voice.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that like makes me happy.
There we go.
You know?
It's nice to have a song that makes you happy.
Yep.
So as we're recording this, Ron, there's been some shakeup in college football.
Yeah.
Alabama is not undefeated. And despite the fact that we've
shocking to you.
despite the fact that we've had 4 one-loss national championship teams, and I say we because I'm an Alabama alum, for some reason people are just kind of freaking out about it. So how do you think the rest of the season is going to
You're not just an Alabama alum. Your father played
Yes,
at
he played
Alabama.
there, yes.
And what position did he play?
He was a fullback.
Fullback.
And
What's
he
his
played-
name and number?
His name's Doug Allen, number 46. So my sisters and I, if we ever have a jersey for our organization,
Your number's going to be 46.
it's going to be 46. We're number 46 for everything. So, yes. What do you think?
I don't think I'm wearing 46, but I'm a 63, so you know. So what was the question again?
The question, how do you think college football is going to shake out for the rest of the year?
I think it is really hard to go undefeated in today's world. I think you can't count Alabama out. I'm shocked that Clemson really is out of it this time, but I love the Cincinnatis and the SMUs of the world.
Absolutely.
That are playing incredibly great football. I think we're about to see a world of either parity or disaster because of all this portal stuff and you can change and all this. Paul Feinbaum, the prognosticator,
Right.
announcer, thought leader, Alabamian, says Alabama's out of the national championship because there are too many great teams, and he doesn't think they can beat Georgia. I think Paul's probably trying to sell tickets for the SEC.
I mean, I'm a little scared
game.
about if we make it to the SEC championship game. I'm a little scared myself.
Well, you should be.
Of Georgia,
It's because I frankly I love college football, but I hate blowouts. I find them incredibly boring, and I find the win joyless. So I get that it's great for a team to beat Mercer by 1,000 points,
Right.
but who really cares?
Right.
And so I love the parity. I love these tight games or tighter games, and I think it's joyful sports. But my Missouri Tigers are not going to be playing in the SEC championship this year, so
So today, we're going to be talking about something that I've had the privilege of watching you do, something that I think you're great at, and that is identifying potential leaders. So I would say if there was a breadcrumb that successful leaders leave behind them, it's other leaders.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk today about, and hear your thoughts on how you identify and cultivate leadership talent around you. So, when you're identifying leaders, what do you look for specifically when you're trying to identify potential leaders that you can raise up?
So I think it's a great question. And we have to back up just a little bit and go, why is it important to have great leaders in your organization? Because talent density is the single most important factor in predicting success of an organization. Organizations that have the fastest horses win the most races.
Absolutely.
Period. So talent matters more than anything else. And not talent in this world of when we mean HR,
Right.
or we mean warm bodies. We're talking about people who are hardwired to thrive. Matter more to an organization than anything else. Give me a talented ice cream scooper, and they're not going to scoop double what an average ice cream scooper scoops, they're going to scoop 6 or 7 times more than that person. So talent's critical. So that's one thing, is the reason you want amazing leaders. 2, for me, I want passion about what we're doing, because you can be a great leader, but if you don't have passion for the purpose, then you'll never be able to execute at that level.
Right.
You have to have drive. So you have to be willing to put your car in gear and put the pedal to the metal and the floor down, their foot down on the floor, and go hard. And if you're not willing to do that, or not in a position to do that, then your ability to lead will be diminished. And then discernment, about knowing where to use your talent and where not to use your talent. And too many young leaders are like pinballs. They're bouncing all over the place, and they never go in a straight line. You know, one of my favorite leaders is the president CEO of PG&E Energy in California, Patty Poppe. And I've known Patty a long time now. And in her previous role as CEO of Consumers Energy, and Patty started her career at Ford. And in the management training program, she's an engineer by training. And I was doing an interview with Patty a few years ago on stage, and I said, "What's the key to success for women?" Because she's, Mary Barra, who's the CEO of General Motors, was a contemporary of Patty's. These ladies have supported each other. And she said, "I took the hard jobs. I looked at where I wanted to go, and I looked, what are the roles that I needed to take to get there, not what was exciting." She said, one of my best friends, who was on the same career path, she took a role in marketing in Europe, and you had a clothing allowance with that, and you got to go to parties and swanky advertising events, and she's still kind of in that area of the company. Where I was the night manager of the paint booth in Akron, Ohio. I learned that business all the way up. And I think that's what young leaders do are going to be great. They have discernment to do the jobs that ensure they do every step on the rung. So if they have to go backwards, they don't fall off.
Right. Wow, that's really good. So in looking at young leaders, are there some characteristics that you see, or I don't know if you have a list or just things that immediately pop out to you about somebody when you say, wow, I can identify them as a potential leader?
I think it's it's unfair, but we all, talk about social media and, but there's no one we interview or look at, or even our existing team. I'm not tracking their social media. Right. Because I want to see, are you doing things or are you saying things? Are you creating a fantasy life of who you are? Or are you living an authentic life where you're documenting what you're doing? And that may seem like nuance, but if you look at it with that filter, you realize, it's more important for these folks to look like they're successful than to do what it takes to be successful. And that's in every aspect of their lives. It's, are you really taking your kids to Easter egg hunt, or are you dressing them up so they look like
and
they're
taking
going
a picture
to
of
Easter
them?
hunt?
Right. Yeah, that's really good. So you're probably the person that I know who is the best at quickly discerning people's strengths. Even like the Talent Plus assessments that we do, you can look at those pages and just be able to read them. And then you meet that person in person and it's like, oh, they're a lot like what Ron said they would be like, So you're very gifted at that. How do you do that? How do you discern people's strengths?
I think part of it is my dyslexia. So I see things in a different way. I see patterns in a different way. And I think that's one of the gifts that a lot of dyslexics have. I think that's why there's an overweighting of CEOs who are dyslexics, is because you see patterns of people and you understand who they are. I think it's this idea that my belief is you can't want more for people than they want for themselves.
Absolutely.
So if somebody is, just because I believe they have the talent to do something, if they don't want to utilize that talent, I can encourage it.
Right.
I can make sure that doors were open that maybe they didn't know were open, but I can't actually execute for them.
Right.
So I think and I'm pretty, I think, transparent about wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to do that, I'll move on.
Right.
Because there are too many amazing people who will.
Right.
And I think it's also this idea that I don't devalue or overvalue one role versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that I had a friend who was famous would be an exaggeration, but he won an Academy Award as an actor, but he was
He's famous.
Yeah, he's famous. And a guy named Ben Johnson.
Okay.
He was John Wayne's sidekick in a lot of movies.
Cool.
So I got to know Ben when he was very old, and he was the ultimate cowboy kind of actor. And Ben liked to rodeo, and he'd say, a healer will starve you to death. So when you're team roping, he roped the head. Well, the hard part's the heels, the back legs, and it'll starve you to death. And so when I look at talent, it's easy to find somebody who can do the easy job. Is it somebody that can do the hard job?
Right.
And are those the people that are going to deliver value? So it isn't that, I just recognize people that are all can do, the driver of the race car. It's if the guy changing the tire doesn't get it right, you lose.
Right.
If he really doesn't get it right, people die.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so every job has a value. We have to lift that up. We have to make sure people know they have value, but they're not all the same.
Right.
And you can't treat people all the same. We can't all be quarterback of the team.
Absolutely. And so when you have a potential leader that you've identified, maybe they've got the talent, they've got a lot of the leadership qualities, how do you assess that their character is ready to be developed as a leader?
I think it's the Olivia Pope question. So, the TV show Scandal, I talk about it all the time. You'd think I'm obsessed with Olivia Pope. Maybe it's Kerry Washington I'm obsessed with. But the Olivia Pope question is, what do you want? In the TV show Scandal, she always asks that question. And almost nobody can ever answer what do they want.
Right.
And when I'm working with leaders, when I'm working with our teammates, it's what do you want? What do you want out of your life? What do you want out of your family? What do you want out of your career? What do you want? Leaders who are on the rise know what they want. Then we can talk about, okay, what do you have to do to get that?
Right.
And that's, and I'll get it wrong. And I know we because it's you, we talk about Coach Saban too many times on this podcast. But, great coaches know that there's a system. And we can't just write down, we want a championship. Well, everybody wants that.
Right.
I've got some of those big rings at home, and they're really nice trophies. But it is the work that I remember doing to get to those championships that made all the difference. And so what we want is the ability to do the work in a way with the resources that create the outcomes that give us the opportunities to achieve the ultimate goals of what we want.
Absolutely.
And that works whether it's family, whether that's our foundational work, whether that's our faith. It all works the exact same way.
Right. Well, and it's really valuing the process over the destination.
That's right.
The destination is great, but if you can learn to value the things that you pull and cultivate from the process, it's life-changing.
Yeah, I was fascinated for a while by mountain climbers. I don't really get it, but I'd read some books on this kind of original explorers, and the thing that fascinates me about mountain climbers is almost nobody dies on the way up. It's those that stay on the mountain too long. They stay on top too long, and then they don't have the resources to get back down.
Right.
And they die going down the mountain. And I think our own leadership reflects that. We all will do the work to get to the top, but then realizing we can only stay there so long before we have to do the work to go back to base camp to start over again to get back to the top. And I think that's a metaphor for everything in our lives.
Absolutely. And you talking about mountain climbing, my freshman year of college, the first book that I ever wrote a paper on, and I don't remember his name, but it was the man who was mountain climbing and got stuck. His arm got stuck within a rock in the mountain. And ultimately, after days of being stuck, he had to make the decision to amputate his own arm so that he could live and go home. And so that makes me think about, as a leader, what are you willing to cut out of your life to get to your destination? You know, and I know that's a pretty drastic metaphor.
I'm not sure I could cut your arm off, let alone mine.
Right. I don't know how he got the strength together to be able to do that, but it was either this arm's got to go or I'm going to die on this mountain.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes me think about that. What are things in your life where you say, man, if I don't let these things go, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to succeed, you know? So pretty drastic metaphor, but just made me think about it. So when you are moving into kind of that development phase of developing a potential leader, what are some steps that you like to take when you're doing that?
I think it's this idea of clearly defining what do you want,
Mm-hmm.
and then what are you willing to do and create that. But I think too, it's about looking at what the barriers are,
mm-hmm.
and being clear that, you know, if again, it kind of goes back to this, well, I've arrived, we won.
Right.
You didn't. There's no finish line in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
There, you know, if you go back, you know, if we're biblical about it, it's you get to heaven and you get a well done, my good and faithful servant.
Right.
But there's no arrived
Mm-hmm.
at that. And no great CEO I know believes that.
Right.
They're all incredible learners. You know, it depends on whose study you believe.
Mm-hmm.
But the average CEO is pumping out 50 books a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's be clear. Most of them are listening to the books.
Right.
Or they're getting annotated briefings on the books, but they're constantly and continuously learning.
Mm-hmm.
They're non-posers,
Mm-hmm.
so they're doing the work. You know, this idea that, you know, they're pulling up with their Rolls Royce in front of their private jet, you know, with their well-coiffed hair and their supermodel spouse. Yeah, that might happen on TV or cigarette company ads. I guess we don't have cigarette company ads there. Scotch ads.
There we go.
But it didn't really happen in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are slugging up a beat-up briefcase and, you know, a ragged bag because they haven't had time to go buy one.
Right.
And they're doing the work every day. And I think that's the biggest thing is they've got a plan and they're working the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a scene in Ted Lasso from the last episode where those who've seen it know that Ted has a little panic disorder problem. And one of the characters is kind of chiding him for it and then gets really serious and goes, "You'll be okay. Just do the work."
Right.
Just do the work. And I think that I feel like, you know, I don't have any tattoos and probably because I have commitment issues, but, you know, that would be one of those things that if I could have, you know, maybe someday I'll get a black light tattoo. I've got several friends who have those that remind them. Mine might be just do the work.
Right.
You'll be all right. Just do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's mental health work or whether it's physical work or whether it's making sure the hay gets in the barn before the rain comes.
Right.
Just do the work.
Right.
It'll all be all right.
Absolutely. And, you know, as someone who's, you know, dealt with anxiety in the past, that's what I found to be is the energy that I exert being anxious over the thing that has to be done is way worse than actually just doing the thing that has to be done.
Yep.
You know, once I do it, it's like, it wasn't bad at all, you know. So, yes, do the work. And so, you know, talking about not feeling like people have arrived. We know that, you know, no leader should ever come to that place where they think they've arrived. But how do you know when a rising leader is kind of ready to be trusted and released into that leadership role?
They're owners and not renters. And we live in a world of renters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the world is telling us more and more to be renters. The world's telling us more and more that we live in a subscription economy. You can plug in and plug out whenever you want. The barrier to entry is low.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the barrier to entry to a successful career and a successful life is owning it.
Mm-hmm.
Owning the good days, owning the bad days, and treating everything like you own it. Own the responsibility, whether or not you own the asset.
Right.
And that when you see that, then that's the great day for me, because there's a sense of release and freedom for me, knowing that person is going to make decisions as an owner, and that takes that relief off of me, takes that pressure off, but also says they're going to do things. They're going to remodel the house in a way that I haven't seen before, because they're living in that house that will take its value up in incredible ways.
Absolutely. And, there's risk involved in ownership. And so I think that's a great sign that a leader is ready, even if they haven't arrived, that they're ready when they're willing to take the risks that are required for that, you know? So, yes. So obviously, people are people, humans are humans. And so there are going to be those moments of failure or those moments of setback. How do you coach a great leader through failure and setback?
So I think the first thing is you have to acknowledge that humans experience pain and loss in different ways. It manifests themselves in different ways. It feels deeper or shallower in different ways, depending on 1,000 hurts you've had and experiences you've had in your life. And so first thing you have to acknowledge it, that we're all different. So, get up, shut up, move on. Will work for some. It won't work for others.
Right.
And so you have to acknowledge that. Then you got to ask yourself or help them work through, why are you hurt? Are you embarrassed? We most people dislike being perceived as a loser more than they actually dislike the loss. They can emotionally, intellectually deal with, hey, I'm not going to win every time, but being seen as a loser, particularly men in the data I read, egos are so tied to that is really tough. And so we got to help people understand that you're seeing that, but the rest of us aren't defining you that way. So I think that's clear. You have to decide, are you bummed because you feel guilty? Because you didn't put it all out on the field? Because you didn't do what it took to win? Is that why we're feeling that way? Well, the good thing is we're all still alive. You now know what the issue is. You made a mistake this time. If it happens again, it's a choice. And if that's the choice, then we have to figure out a different strategy for you. But we have to do that. And then I think a lot of what I'm seeing right now of people who are not achieving what they expect to achieve is they're exhausted. Emotionally, physically, intellectually exhausted. And I'm kind of in that season right now where I can't seem to get recharged. And I've been one of the commitments I made this year was 8 hours sleep. Period. I'm getting 8 hours sleep. I'm finding that's not enough right now. And so and I'm working 6 to 8 weeks. So it's not sustainable. But if we let that exhaustion go too long, the manifestation of exhaustion is depression or self-medication. Those are the two outcomes that come from that. And so as leaders of people, we've got to tag folks and go, hey, are you taking care of yourselves? Or we had a policy here where we shut down at noon on Fridays in the summer. And I'd have to run people off. Go, no. I know what's coming in the fall. You got to get caught up now. Because when the fall comes, you're not going to have this. And we need to put those resources in the barn so you can draw on them. And so I think we have to make sure of that, but we have to protect ourselves too. against that exhaustion, which manifests into burnout, which is a real thing. And you have to talk about it. At our team at Scrum this week, we were talking about the where to find mental health resources and what our insurance company pays for that, what it costs to do it, what the merits are doing it in person versus a Skype with a counselor. 5 years ago in our society, there weren't a handful of companies in the country having those discussions.
Taboo.
I don't know how many are having it now, but we had 4, 5, 6, maybe there were 8 people who said, oh yeah, no, I'm using this and this is how it's working for me. And so that stigma has gone away. And the truth is, CEOs for years have said, oh yeah, I've got a leadership coach. A lot of what that leadership coach was doing is coaching against anxiety, coaching against, this burnout, coaching against exhaustion. A lot of the things that mental health professionals are dealing with at epidemic proportions right now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's important to remember as a leader, it all matters. It matters what you eat. It matters how much you sleep. It matters if you drink water. I'm not great about drinking water. I have to do better.
I drink a ton of water. It's just called iced tea.
Right. Well, Sprite has water in it, and it's just carbonated water with a little bit of lemon, lime, and sugar. So it's water, right?
Okay, a lot of sugar. A lot of sugar.
But it all matters. And I love what you're saying as well about coaching that point of failing does not make you a failure. And learning how to separate your identity from your wins and losses. Understanding you're going to win sometimes, you're going to lose sometimes. Losing doesn't have to make you a loser unless you choose to be that.
That's right.
So I think that's a great wrap-up point. Do you have any other thoughts?
I don't. I think all I can think of is Ricky Bobby. You ain't first, you're last, which doesn't really help this discussion at all. So, I guess I got nothing for you, except we'll see you next week.
Awesome. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us. If today's conversation has ignited greatness in you, take your next step and visit ronkitchens.com to gain more inspiration and to connect with Ron. You can also tweet Ron at Ron Kitchens. Until next time, keep moving, always forward.